Alright, excuse the probably crappy audio because I'm doing the quick cam capture instead of the full blown editing, correcting the levels, and my mic volume is for some reason never very good. But I don't really have the time and want to get the review because very excited about this card in the aftermath. Not necessarily because it was a great night of fights. It had its moments, it had its down moments, but we learned a lot, and I think that's kind of the thing. Start off with spike fights. We had Efren basically do what he wanted against Dan Lozon. Lozon did a good job of shutting down the wrestling, but Efren was connecting it well. It was a bit ugly for Lozon fans. Um, he won an easily unanimous decision. Luis Kane versus Cyril Debati. Cyril Debati winning by knockout in the first round. Second knockout in a row for the first round for Kane. Even though they were both decent shots that did finish him, I'm starting to doubt his ability to take a punch a little bit. I'm also noticing that his head movement and boxing defense is not very good. He got a takedown and got reversed by Cyril Diabate, so definitely a moment to go back to the drawing board and try and regroup. For Kane, where does Diabate go? I don't really know. It's hard to gauge where he is because Kane's not looking very good lately. Another kind of litmus test type of fight against probably someone who might at least try and stand and bang against him. I can't really, names don't really come to mind. Kane might get cut. As for Efren, Dan Lozon probably should be cut because he's not looked good since coming back to the UFC. For Efren Escudero, I kind of interested in a rematch with Evan Dunham a little bit, but perhaps a step up in competition. Let's see him fight perhaps Tyson Griffin. Would not mind seeing that fight one bit. And then we had Amir Sadal versus DHK. DHK just showing the deficiencies in Amir's game, which is the takedown defense, his ground game. While he does actually have good subs off of his back, I've always noticed he's not very good at the positioning aspect of the game. DHK goes on. Let's see him go in there against John Hathaway, who we'll talk about later. As for Amir, another build-up fight. I mean, he is a tough winner. They'll give him possibly a debut and to just go out there and beat. Main card, we had John Hathaway, Diego Sanchez. John Hathaway with a stunning performance, but it was in conjunction with the fact that Diego didn't look very good. Maybe he's lost a little something. Maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's a mental thing, perhaps. But he's got to figure out what's wrong and he's got to fix it. Let's put it that way. Because John Hathaway, no offense to the man, but there's no way that he really, with his skill set, should beat Diego. But he nailed him with a good knee. Diego did not look the same after that. Yeah, decision, John Hathaway. Next up, Jason Brills versus Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. Nogueira, you know, this was an interesting fight because Brills looked pretty good. Nogueira did look a little bit out of it, maybe perhaps an injury, perhaps just the fact that this was a late minute replacement. People kind of looking at that like he almost lost to a late minute replacement. But when you're trading for one guy and you get a completely different guy, it is a considerable shock to the system, and you got to wonder how badly that affected his game plan. Burroughs was able to take him down. He had some moments of control. Nog did manage to sweep him. Burroughs did land a little bit on the feet, but I gave the striking advantage to Nog. The first round is basically the microcosm of the fight. Whoever you scored it for will get the win, because the third round is definitely Nog. The second round is definitely Brills. I encourage you to watch that first round and make your own decision as to who won that fight. Some are going to call it a robbery. Some are going to call it a good call. I'm going to call it a very close fight that I'm not really going to complain about it had it gone either way. What's next for Brills? Let's get him in there with another decent guy. Um, let's look at an up and comer that he could be a litmus test for. Kind of for some reason would like to see him fight Ryan Bader. I think that could be possibly a little bit interesting. As for Nogueira, well, he's still sort of in the line for a title shot, but he needs a big win. Maybe put him in there with Randy Couture. Maybe put him in there with Rampage Jackson, because that's an interesting fight. and we'll see what goes on from there. Thiago Silva's another option, I guess. Moving on, we had Dan Miller. I'm missing a fight somewhere in here, aren't I? Aren't I? Oh yes, Todd Duffy, Mike Russo. My apologies. I was somewhat wrong. I was wrong that Russo could take him down, but you know what? I was right with some of my skepticism about Duffy. That's not a bad thing because you got to learn about this fighter, and he's got to learn about himself. And that's what I kept saying, and that's what he said a number of times, and people were just overhyping the crap out of him. He has knockout power. Russo's got a very good chin. Um, his boxing defense is not the greatest, but I would not really make much of a comment on his chin because that was a good shot landed by Russo. He has good takedown defense, but the cardio needs work. His striking needs a little bit of refinement, a little more mixing it up. Uh, but definitely the cardio is the big thing with Todd Duffy right now. He's got to improve that. Otherwise, you know what? Maybe this won't happen, but similar things will happen. Dan Miller, Michael Bisping, Dan Miller, what the hell? What the hell? Not going with an effective game plan in any way, standing with Michael Bisping. Bisping takes the easy, unanimous decision. Um, that's all. There's really not much more to say about this fight other than Miller was getting beaten up on the feet and basically went for very few takedowns, and you can't do that. Melvin Gillard, we got to see his fight. He just basically outclassed Waylon Lowe. Waylon Lowe wasn't having anything had nothing to take him down with, had nothing for him standing. Bam, 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 boom. Good night. Needed the body. KO. Well, not KO. I guess that's technically still a TKO. But stoppage via strikes. Finally, the main event, Rampage versus Rashad. I'm going to preface this by saying that, despite the fact that Rashad or Rampage lost, I would still probably pick him in a rematch because I feel that if you look at that Rampage, it was not the best Rampage we've seen. Was it a good Rashad? It definitely was. He gave him a good rocking in the first round, but it wasn't a great rocking, really. It looked more like he just caught him off balance. He had like 2 takedowns the whole fight. I said he would have a really hard time taking Rampage down, and he did. Rampage came the closest of anyone to finishing the fight with the knockdown in the third, and then just lost his killer instinct. And it's a win for Rashad, and quite honestly, I mean, you could argue that the title win was his biggest win of his career, but I would have to go with this is the biggest win of his career. But you know what? It shows a lot of things. It shows that he really doesn't seem to have quite the explosive level of his in his striking or wrestling. At the same time, it seems like he can only have one, which is a bit disturbing. He's very quick, but we know his ground game is somewhat susceptible. We've seen him struggle to control people. He's a bit small for the weight class, and his chin is somewhat suspect, particularly in the third round. If he fights Shogun, I predict Shogun will win by a stoppage due strikes. Has he earned the title shot? I would have to say so, because this was the number one contenders match. I mean, maybe had Nog Griffin gone off, and Nog had come out there and like wrecked Griffin, or vice versa, then maybe one of them would be in there. But really, it's got to be Rashad. If they sneak Randy Couture in there, I'm gonna be pissed, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. Anyways, record was 7-4 on the card, and hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Later.